Christian Network and the Greek Orthodox Church of St. George. I'm Michael Haldus, your facilitator. And the subject this year, the theme this year has been salvation, the mystery of salvation. And today we're going to begin what I think will probably be a series of classes titled Salvation and the Meaning of Life. Pretty lighthearted topic. Maybe we'll be out.
That's an easy one.
We'll be out of here in 5 minutes. But in reality, as Orthodox Christians, the answer to that question, what is the meaning of life, really isn't that difficult. The difficulty really is in the acceptance of the answer and everything that's derivative from that answer, and then the application in our lives, and then furthermore, the continual application on a daily basis. And so we'll get into that. The way this came about, thank you, John, is on October 9th, I sent out these quotes. I do this quotes of the day thing. I've been doing it for 12, 13 years, where a theme comes to me during prayer time and whatever it is, and then I arrange 5 quotes. Sometimes it takes me 5 minutes, sometimes longer, just whatever hits me. And I send it out to multiple blind copy distribution lists. If you want to be on it, just email me, Sacramental Living, one word, @verizon.net, and I'll add you. But on October 9th, the quote of the day theme was thoughts on the meaning of life. And then John emailed me and said this would be a fascinating topic if you want to depart from your theme for a couple of weeks or 1 week. And I thought to myself, it's really not a departure from the theme, because obviously it's self-evident as Christians, the meaning of life is our salvation. And so there's a lot of things. So I thought, you know what? There's a lot that I had planned that we can wrap under this topic. And then John and I, we had some exchanges, and I said, well, I have some thoughts about what would be interesting to talk about. So give me your thoughts. So, a few things, standard question, why are we here? Why do we exist? Why did God create all this? What is the purpose of our individual lives? How do we make a difference in this world? And how do we best connect with God, humanity, creativity, nature, things like that? So what I hope to do, and usually when I plan these classes, what I do is I pretend in my mind I'm giving a lecture, because that helps me structure it. And I structure as if I was going to go point by point through a lecture. And of course, wherever the class goes is where I go, and I see if we're getting off topic, bring it back. This one, I didn't do that because it wasn't coming to me like that. It was coming to me in various subtopics that we would talk about. So, you probably don't see it on the screen, but I have a lot of notes in front of me because I write a lot of this out because I repurpose the material for other things, whether it's lectures or articles or whatnot. So I have a lot of stuff, but I think that where I want to begin is really get a discussion going right away and ask you the question, anybody wants to answer or start talking, is this, do any of you struggle with really of finding meaning in your life? Or perhaps you find meaning in some areas but not other areas? And if so, what are some of the internal questions you ask yourself beyond maybe some of the things I just brought up? Or what? Let's start understanding a little bit. And those who, if anybody's looking online and wants to add in the chat, feel free. But let's start there to see where people's heads are at, and we can go from there. Because one of the things that this might not be satisfying at first, I think wherever we're going to have to start at a high level and then come down to what we would call the practical application. But let's start. Michael, you're going to say something, or just? I'm not putting you on the spot.
You want to start at a high level, and then
no. What I'm saying is, I may bring us back to a high level in order to set up anyway. But go ahead.
All right, at a high level, then, concept of self. So concept of country. Anybody get struck by, like today's bulletin? I was looking at today's bulletin, and it says the Veterans Day prayer. I vow to thee, my country. And I vow to thee, my country, all earthly things above, entire and whole and perfect, the service of my love, the love that asks no questions, the love that stands the test, the lays upon an altar the dearest and the best, the love that never falters, the love that pays the price, the love that makes undaunted the finest sacrifice, What? Does that sound, I mean, maybe it's just my American civil liberties mind, but does that sound terribly reactionary to you? That level of prayer that you think you're praying to God is to my country, that this is the loyalty, this is the meaning that I give to my country. So myself is my country because I owe my country no questionable, unquestionable, daunting love. Really? I that hit me. But then I saw in here, it said that the hymn describes how a Christian owes his loyalties to his homeland as well as the heavenly kingdom. Wow. So your loyalty to your country, you know, that concept is the same as your loyalty to God. I mean, does this sound like indoctrination? Or is that just my, as I said, my more individual liberties, American view of this? What do you think?
I think it's meant to be interpreted as a soldier's prayer.
Ah,
That's
So
my.
I have a thought, but I don't want to, because I'm going to hog in the room anyway, because it's my nature, my role here. But let me hear what others say.
Yeah, I'd say that it would be a terribly inappropriate prayer if you're living in Nazi Germany, for example. But if you're living in the United States, and I got to say, unfortunately, in recent years, America has been evaluated not in comparison to every other country on earth, but in comparison to the perfect. And as they say, what is it? The perfect.
The enemy of good.
Yes.
Yeah.
The enemy of good. And unfortunately, a lot, particularly of young kids graduated from college, have a very skewed view of what the United States is and isn't.
yes.
And it's filled with problems, as everything is. But compared to what?
Every other country.
What's not been filled with problems? Look at our Lord. Pick 12 disciples. One was no good. I mean, there's problems inherent in everything. It's how we deal with the problems. Tina, you're going to say
I
something?
was just going to say, maybe it's like Maritza, it's a woman's view. This would be a prayer anyone going into battle would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a good starting point for maybe starting kind of. So when I heard that, I hear the word love repeatedly, and I start thinking, okay, love. What does that mean? Then you further explained what should be a congruence between what we do on earth versus what's going on spiritually, right? An integration. I would say to you, we don't live integrated. There's a lot of disintegration, and that's half our problem because we don't always see the connectivity between love of country, love of family, love of this, love of that, with a higher love, with how it's a derivative expression of something that we should be aligned with 24/7, 365, that we're not. So let's start with meaning at a high level. And again, I want this to be, go ahead.
May I start at a low level?
You may. I'm here to serve you, not me. So
Seriously.
Yeah, I'm being
Every
serious
once in a
too.
while, just with all the quote unquote busyness, right? BUSY-NESS going on in the world and whatnot. Every once in a while, just out of the blue, I will just stop and say, what is all this about? Like, why am I here? Why are all these trees here? What am I working for? What's going to happen tomorrow? Does anybody care? Like, just from every different direction. And then it's okay, now let's think about why all of these things do matter, why I am here and whatnot. But yeah, every once in a while, I will just stop and say, what is the point of all this?
how do you then connect all this? Do you connect it to something that then aligns it to meaning for you?
First thing I do is I look up. I look
Okay.
up at the sky
Right.
and I think about creation.
Okay.
There's a reason that this entire universe was created. I have no idea what it is, and we won't know in this life.
That's
And
not
then
true.
as I come down, it's okay. So if there's creation, then there's life, then there's family, there's my relationships, there's everyone that I know and whatnot. But that's sort of a very simplistic.
But you
way.
do partially know in this life. We're not going to know everything. That's why this class is called the mystery of salvation, because remember, mystery is about revelation to as much as we can bear. But we know something. We do.
But
That's
we can say in the abstract that we accept that it's mystery, but then every once in a while I'll sit there and challenge the fact that it's a mystery.
Right, but I would say
I want to know.
I would say there's a danger, though. Yeah, we can accept in the abstract, but
Yeah.
lingering in the abstract for more than a few seconds is a dangerous place to be, because then it makes everything abstract when what's presented to us is actually concrete. That's why I said in the beginning, there's actually an easy answer to this question. It's tying all the threads together, and everything you've articulated so far falls into what I call maybe the higher level. Maybe it's not.
But I guess what I'm saying is, like, we know, especially from this class, that it's the meaning of life, right? The purpose of life is to attain theosis. Then we have to sort of pull back. Because
Yeah.
what does that mean actually? Like, what can I tangibly do with theosis? I know where my heart is. I know where my soul is. I know as I strive to perfection, like the American nation, Andy, and the like. But all I'm saying is, every once in a while, that portal opens.
Yeah.
And that portal says, are you on a treadmill and just, running in place and not going anywhere and not doing anything meaningful in
Well,
your
that,
life?
that portal opens on purpose, because that's the Holy Spirit always convicting our heart, not wanting us to go through life in the abstract or go through life so busy that we're not asking these questions. I mean, Andy talked about the younger generation. What are those poor people been indoctrinated into? Well, one of it was not to ask this question. There is no meaning in life. Get up, grow up, get a job, go to college, get a job, make a lot of money, and die. And don't think about stuff. That's what So that's tragic. So we're here for more. So here, let me start with this, and then we'll go. The reason I'm asking these probing questions, let me ask this: how does anybody in this room understand logos? What the meaning of the word logos is, the concept, the word.
Divine spirit.
Partly, perhaps.
I mean, word, but I guess.
Yeah, but it's
Deeper than
order.
word.
it's key order. It's really key to this. It's a key stepping stone to how we derive meaning and understand it. I mean, there's a reason John used it in his gospel. In the beginning was the logos. Beginning was the word. He was purposely. He knew his audience. He knew how they would understand it. We've perhaps lost that understanding.
What was God? It was God.
Yeah, the word of God. To get to John's point, what does that really mean? Like, what is it? How does it anchor? How does it pertain to us taking a walk, thinking about a mortgage we have to pay, and all of a sudden getting hit with higher existential questions and trying to boil it down?
Because our whole life should be centered around God, and everything we do, we should think of God and how to do it, and what He would want us to do.
Absolutely. But I would say then, how do we then make that go from here to something we feel and understand and hear in our heart that actually makes sense, that then starts to help us? I don't know if I either ask that question more or starting to see how the threads of our life that we think are separate all roll up into a greater meaning of our life.
Prayer. That's, you ask God, hopefully I'm doing what you want me to do. And if you're getting problems, then help you to see how you can find the good in it.
Yeah, that's all true. That's
I
all.
get up every morning and I say, Eleni, you've been blessed with another day. And not everybody is blessed with another
Right.
day. And I don't have anything in front of me that is so dire, such a struggle that I can't think about others. So I say, today, what are you going to do to be happy? And for me to be happy, it means I have to make other people happy. I have to bring other people together. And that's kind of something I like to do in whatever I do, whether it's here with Badea, whether it's in my clubhouse in my neighborhood, whether it was with the union I ran, whether it was with the singers I sang with. But bringing people together to feel the joy of life is, I think, a part of doing God's will, because together we can conquer whatever we need to conquer, the struggles in our lives. And when there is a need, when someone is suffering and there's a need, how can you lighten their burden? That's what I think, to me, the meaning of life is, and it's my test for the end.
So what I heard you say, I really liked, because you didn't use these words I'm about to say, but this is how I heard it, because I think it's true what you said, is you're seeing the integration of all the parts of your life to a common purpose, which is an expression of God's love and how we should be. Is that fair?
Yes.
Did anybody else hear it that way?
Yes.
I was going to say that what you said, explained there, was a formula that many knowledgeable people say, the formula to a happy life, which is also, as you say, consistent with another formula, which is much larger.
Yeah, absolutely. So where I'm getting at logos. See, here's how they understood this word. This is why he used the word. Logos was the organizing principle of reality, right? So then John comes along and says that organizing principle of reality incarnated so that we could understand, right? So if you, so the way, let me just, I guess I'll get personal here. What that meant for me is I came to understand that more deeply. I came to started to think, well, this isn't some esoteric thing that just helps me be more spiritual. The organizing principle is Christ himself. So what does it mean to theosis, to become more Christ-like? It means the expression of this in every single aspect of our life and starting to see the threads of how these things go together. But it also gets into, you can sit down. So, but it also starts informing us then, okay, then how do we understand our choices? How do we understand free will? How do we understand freedom? How do we understand, am I making a difference? All these questions start becoming more answerable to us as we become more in alignment with the organizing principle of reality, which in our case happens to be Christ himself, a person we can relate to. So that's where I was kind of going. That's why I said that's a little higher level, but I don't want to stay there. I want to keep the conversation to the practical reality we all live so we can continue to see how it connects to that. But I think you articulated it very well because you talked about different aspects of your life, but it's all about the really expression of God's love, right? God's love is a tangible action, always about somebody else. So go ahead.
I think one of the notes that I sent to you was, what struck me was when Christ says, where 2 or 3 of you are gathered, I am with you. Didn't say you. That we're not meant to be islands or individuals. We're meant to be relational. We're meant to be communal. We need to have relationships to help other people, to be with other people, to derive energy from other people and uplifting and the like. So there is something about the meaning of life in making sure that it's not simply about myself, but my relationship with the world around me.
Yes, and so it's a reminder of the nature of reality and the nature of the cross, right? There's a horizontal and a vertical, vertical and horizontal aspect to it. And there's certain questions that we can't answer, but we do know empirically that we know God chose to create us, and we know from Christ, we know what that is supposed to look like, which is the communal nature of reality. And so we see that right in Genesis, right? Because I have it in my notes, and I'm not going to go too far down there because I don't want to quote unquote get too theological. But the way John structured his gospel when introducing, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word is with God, he's mirroring Genesis, right? When he's let there be light, because that let there be light was, we should hear that let there be the light of Christ, right? And you see in Genesis, before things were broken, everything was in communion with everything. Things were just happening naturally without what we would think of as human effort, without the drudgery of the post sin. Like Adam had to make the earth grow food for him, whereas before the tree was just offering the fruit. And so everything was integrated. And so we see a picture of that, but it's everything, to your point, John, everything was communal. And one of the blocks to spirituality a lot is the individualism we bring to it, or the way we process it. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, building onto that in Genesis, look at what happened during COVID and what the world learned from COVID. Because fundamentally, it didn't matter what religion you are, what race you are, where you were in the world, whether you were in a first world country or a third world country, the human being and the spirit needs the same thing. You need food, you need to feed your kids, you all want an education for your children. We need social interaction for mental health. And that mental health component isn't isolated to a religion or a race or a place in the world. We all fundamentally as humans need the same thing. to just be
Mhm.
spiritually well beings.
Hi.
Hi.
I was reading, or actually listening to, there's a woman, her name's Leah Sargent. She wrote a book.
Oh, I know Leia.
Have you
I
seen
met.
her?
Yeah, she's actually been down here a couple times. We had Doxicon here.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Leia, and she's married and has a couple of kids now, right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
but
Leah,
She
yeah,
wrote
she-
this book.
Yeah.
The book is not the same title of this piece that she did for First Things, but it's called The Declaration of Dependence.
Mhm.
And that we become so accustomed to hearing, be independent is the primary virtue above communal, being dependent on each other, particularly in America, kind of with a puritanical, like put yourself up by your bootstraps and shove it down and get through life, which can be helpful. I think both extremes are, complete dependence.
So my
is not
question
great.
in this prayer is cultural. You're just saying that it's you writing a book that heralds being the individual, right?
No.
Well, I don't think Leia was actually pointing out the flaws in that, right?
I'm saying, yeah, she's pointing out the flaws.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of very independent.
Okay.
Pull
Yeah.
yourself up by your
Yeah.
bootstrap. No man, no, you by yourself. As opposed to this, we are dependent creatures. That is our nature, is to be dependent. A child to its mother.
Mhm.
A church, and then the ultimate dependence on Christ and God. So she's a Catholic.
Yeah.
Scholar. So yeah, she's
gone through a lot of, like, I think she's been, I'm not going to say anything, but I think she's been forthcoming in some of her work, some of the personal struggles she's gone through.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She's
yeah,
a-
like I said,
yeah.
I haven't dove very deep into her, but for me, that was like a real epiphany as someone who's always been like an independent woman.
Oh, right,
you know what I
right,
mean?
yeah.
And so, and listening to it through this framework was really interesting for
Well,
me.
It's interesting too, because, pulling on the threads of, combining both of what you said, I think if you ever see, it's in Philippians, all things through Christ who strengthened me. If you ever see the images they put to that, it's always of a single person ascending a mountain by themselves. It's
reminds me of Time magazine.
yeah, it's just so wrongheaded. It's so wrongheaded. I can do all things through Christ and strengthen me. What they should be picturing is a bunch of people gathered around each other, helping each other out. That's really what it is. And to your point, Andrea, the point you were raising is there is no meaning in anything just by ourselves. We can't even, we weren't created that way.
Right.
The very fact that Christ incarnated was showing the value of the human person in all his and her totality. And the fact that he came and dwelt among us was a living example of love and community. So all the, we're created as unique individuals. So that's not bad in and of itself. It's when we see ourselves that way and start treating people like stepping stones, or allow ourselves to be picked off in isolation. Or I want to get to one of the questions you asked, or the answer to the question I'm about to bring up becomes something that it shouldn't be, like, how do I make a difference? So I would ask about that question is, if you're asking yourself that question, take it one step further. Ask yourself, why am I asking myself that question? Because the answer to that question shows you whether you're going in a good direction or a bad direction. Think about that for a minute.
So the first question is, why are you asking that question?
Why are you asking yourself that question? I think we've all, look, everyone in this room has asked
Let's go
themselves at
back
some
to the
point.
low level, John.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, if talk about individualism, if you start having delusions of grandeur, is I'm here to make this big difference, right? And you're defining that by your own self, outside of prayer, outside of community. You can go a lot of dark places, right? That's what I'm saying. And so the answer to that question is usually that it's really more self-evident. How does anybody make a difference? Think about it for an answer. How does anybody make a difference?
Serve.
Yeah, serve. And usually, where's the service? Well, right in front of you.
Anybody?
How do you make a difference? You raise good kids if you have kids. How do you make a difference? You're in a church community. You serve your church community. You serve the sick and the suffering. You serve who around you. Remember I said Christianity is a movement from the inside out? It's always a ripple effect outward. It's not how am I going to make a difference to do something big and huge because I'm a warrior of God. Remember we were talking about earlier, things like that. That's what I meant. It's kind of like, it's really right in front of you. Go ahead.
I'm going to keep it low, Michael. Okay? Very low.
I'm trying to. If I'm not,
Thank
let me
you,
know.
John.
I'm bringing pop culture
Yeah.
because what's that really popular Christmas movie? I forget. I've got brain freeze. But
Christmas Story? Ralphie?
No, they're from the 1940s.
Oh, It's a Wonderful
It's a
Life.
Wonderful Life.
Oh yeah, I thought of Ralphie too. That's where I went immediately, Jennifer. But anyway, go
Isn't
ahead.
that really what we're talking about,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
You're asking the question,
Yeah.
how do you make a difference? And it had to be explained to him how he made a difference in so many people's lives. And, and without being, overtly Christian proselytizing, the underlying message is there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. I'm not attacking the fact that we all ask that question. I'm just saying that the answer lies in a more simplistic way than what we would like to think of it, because again, it ties to the worship of the individual, so to speak. We're all conditioned to achieve this individual greatness because that's what's rewarded culturally. That's what's valued culturally. And sometimes sometimes it's valued correctly because someone has done fantastic things that are really great, and nothing's wrong with that. But I'm saying it becomes wrong if that becomes the object of what you're seeking. That's the meaning of my life will be defined on what I can achieve. But you're basing that achievement on what? And on who? That kind of thing. Go ahead, Jenna.
Well, it becomes very narcissistic.
It can be, yeah.
If you're saying I'm the savior of the world, essentially, or I have the power, if everyone were just more like me, or did the things that I did, it becomes very narcissistic.
Yeah, and that's easy to slip into because even in your day-to-day relationships, some of the
There are
message.
some who would say though that high achievement takes narcissism. You have to be at that level of I can do it in order to make it, or you won't.
But may I respond to
Yeah,
that?
please.
So that's not a bad thing because we're taught in the Gospels that we're bestowed with talents
Yes.
by Christ.
Yes.
And if we don't use our talents
Yes.
to the max, we're failing Christ, right?
Yes.
The talents, right? The 10 talents and the 3 talents or whatever the middle number was. But if you balance that desire to make the most of your talents with, in your relationship with Christ, a humility, you can do both. Like
Indeed.
in this world, pursue with maximum ambition and still in your relationship with Christ, lower yourself and understand your place in the order of things.
Exactly, John.
Well, look at the honorees today that we honored in our church. The names that were given out were these people of great high standing. Not that we in public would think so, but those of us who know what they do, I hold them in very
Mhm.
high esteem because they have given unselfishly of themselves to everyone here in our community, and they've made it a better place for all of us. So I don't think you have to be one way or the other. I think
Sure.
you can attain it in many different ways.
And it's to quote, can you achieve great things and still be Christ-like? Look at his all holiness. Patriarch.
Absolutely. Go ahead,
And
Andrea.
what I was going to say is building on what Michael was talking about, and everybody, there's a difference between sharing your gift from God and being the best and feeling you're God-like, right?
That's kind of a different.
Right? So you can, if you look at the best, you work hard, you achieve, but those are gifts from God that are allowing you to do that with your hard work instead of viewing yourself as being godlike.
Well, yeah, in the sense of the ego, because Christ himself said, you are gods. They use that term in the Bible. That sometimes doesn't get translated well in certain English Bible because it's too offensive. People see it as blasphemous. But no, we're put on this earth to become higher than the angels. That's more of the grander, higher purpose, which is to become godlike, but not godlike in our own mind from an egotistical perspective. It's to become Christ-like by, taking on his attributes. And I think a lot of what we're talking about, what achievements is, you have to ask yourself, what are the motivations? What are your motivations? That's what it gets down to. And if one more thing, if you look at the saints, or even in the parable of the sheep and the goats, the sheep, they weren't really self-aware of what they were doing. They were just doing it, and they were in alignment with God, because they were doing the things of God. So it's more of those things. Go ahead.
And to go back, I know when we were talking about the prayer and the meaning of that prayer, and the underlying aspect was love.
Mhm.
So what drives you to go into a leadership, to be a soldier going into war? Love is always going to win out. And love of whatever it is should drive you in that direction, because when it's hate, All right, let's use 9/11 as an example. When it's hate, no matter how much destruction you have, no matter how many lives lost, what's always followed up by that destruction? Love and healing and faith. So hate can cause damage, but love is always going to.
Yeah, hate can always cause damage, and it always will. But what we know and what we need to embrace as best we can, and sometimes it gets hard, especially if we've gone through personal tragic circumstances. It becomes really hard to embrace what I'm about to say, but it doesn't change the truth of it. That hate and evil are not lasting. They can cause damage. They're not going to last. We shouldn't get so worked up in it, and we shouldn't get worked up too that sometimes it's our task. You and I were talking about something. It's our task sometimes to step away. Sometimes it's our task to step in. It just depends. But we don't have to worry that love won't win out in a way that most of the time it's in a way we can't necessarily foresee. And it's usually the opposite of what we think. I mean, that was the whole thing. Look at Christ on the cross. Remember how we understand the gospel, talk about meaning of life. We understand what was going on primarily as spiritual warfare, right? And we understand that the gospel was really the evangelion. It meant like a declaration of military victory. And the spiritual dark powers have been defeated. And now we as human beings that were created out of love are invited to participate in this victory. We don't know what the afterlife is going to be. We don't know. We just have glimpses of something, and we trust and through faith it's going to be something wonderful. But we're invited to participate in that victory. And how does that manifest in our understanding of our day-to-day life? Well, we participated in our daily actions of how we love others. Sometimes it gets exceedingly difficult to love others, but it's what we're called to do, and we can apply that into all aspects of our life. Andy?
I was just going to mention that as I was thinking about all of the people around this table, it really is, when you're asking a question, what is life? This really is an anomaly here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a matter of fact, I was going to encourage you to invite more slovenly people.
I tried to invite everybody.
But really, we really are the peak here. If you really were to ask this question to the average human being in the world today, these people are not anywhere near what the people around this table are. And that would be an interesting and long, complicated subject as to why. Is it their brain chemistry? Is it the circumstance they were born into? Is it what the world is? But really, it makes it tough in this group because everybody here, truly, the way they see the world and what the steps should be, it's tough to find a higher.
Well, my thought in doing this, because I've asked myself many times, I'm like, because I've gone through the same question as you've gone through. I'm like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? What difference? I go through that once in a while. But then I remind myself of what I preach. I was like, well, you never know the ripple effect. I have no idea when you guys walk out to all the wonderful, great things you're doing, how the exchange with each other may affect that in a positive way. So then I see my role. Well, I just, whatever I can do, I can help create the conditions for that by what I do, but it's like you said. So that's how I look at it. I think a lot of, we talked about culture. I think any way, whatever role we're in, all the different roles we're in, any way we can help change culture to be more Christ-like. And I always look at the arts because that's where I play around, I dabble in. And this is going to sound, I don't know how this is going to sound. I'm just going to say it. So my daughter and wife wanted to watch the Wicked musical the other night. Not the movie, but so I was like, okay. So this is where my daughter reminds me, you're real fun at parties, aren't you, Dad? So I'm watching it. And on the positive, I'm like, wow, this director, these actors, these people created this piece of art that is moving millions of people. They're all there in their outfits and stuff. They're having a good time, celebrating with each other. That's all the positive stuff. I was like, okay, so because art changes everything, right? And then I thought, then the message, and this is where I want to throw up. This is where I really have a struggle with, and I try not to say too much because I can really be a wet blanket. But the message was, be true to yourself. That's all the culture here is, be true to yourself. Well, that's a huge, huge difference than our ontological understanding of what we're talking about here, which is becoming our true self. There's a wide chasm and gulf between becoming our true self and being true to ourselves.
Mhm.
And a lot of those people, ourselves included, this is the culture we swim in. The culture that encourages you to be true to yourself, that then tries to subvert everything. Like not taking anything away from the cleverness of the Wiccan story, but look what it's doing. It's taking a classic story of good's defeat of evil, and it's subverting everything. It's like, no, you have it wrong. The good guy's really evil, and the bad person is really good, and has been oppressed and needs to be freed. I mean, it's kind of a garbage message to some extent, but it's a dangerous message because it subverts reality. And then you try to talk about this kind of reality to someone, they're like, you're nuts, because it's so countercultural. And then one more thing is, then Christians have created Christian art and Christian music, Christian this, which amounts to doing very little, because then it's its own counterculture. It's not infused as a change agent in culture that's derivative from people that are just taking what's embedded inside them and then finding a way to express it. And then remembering art isn't about self-expression. It's always pointing to something higher and better. And that's, I think, needs to be more of that. And then more people may be receptive to the kind of things this august body talks about in here.
You kind of ended on.
Oh, did I steal your thunder? Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure you've heard Jonathan Peugeot talk. I mean, recently he gave a talk about, because he's an iconographer, and he said art is, this modern notion of art as the ultimate self-expression. This is who I am on a canvas or in a movie, or he's like, no, that's not the purpose of art. The purpose of art is to be the expression of God.
Yeah.
And his kingdom and his world and his earth. So
I knew thematically that's where he is.
Yeah. It's just, and he said that, and he makes the very point of, like, when you have Christian art and Christian music, that's not doing anything. It's just creating the further divide between those who follow Christ and those who don't, instead of infusing the popular culture without saying anything, knowing that their art is of God and for God, as opposed to for themselves. You don't have to say anything. You just make that art, and that will start.
Yeah,
I mean, Angel Studios is kind of a reflection of this, doing more popular movies, not making the even the ones that are explicitly Christian, like The Chosen. At least it's done in a very cinematic. It's done in the way popular movies are done, in storytelling, right? And then it gets criticism because, well, that's not true. That it doesn't matter. It's the meta. It's what it brings to the everyday. And I think we have to meet the moment where it is too. We have to understand that we are so far gone that anything in that direction will be better.
Yeah, and I don't. It's like anything else. It's not. Nothing is. I mean, most things have some value to it. And the other thing we have to be careful of. We can talk about things in here in terms of trying to understand them and categorize them. Well, we also, to your point, we also have to step back and be humble and say, how's God using those things too? Because we can say something isn't that great, but then we can encounter. I mean, I know, like one low point I was at, it was this gospel song that was overtly from Christian rock that just saved me in that moment. And so I can say that happened, but at the same time, I can say in general, it creates a false dichotomy.
Yes.
So that's.
I mean, I love the music too. Like, when I'm feeling low, I'd rather listen to that than
Do you ever listen
Nicki Minaj. But
right.
Do you ever listen to K-Love? K-Love, the radio station.
I've heard that station.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I think it bridges the gap from that same old Christian music. I mean, how many times can you hear praise you, I need you, I love you? Just over.
But sometimes in your lowest moment, that's exactly what you need to hear.
But that done in a way that you would describe as good music, though, is what this particular radio station I recommend, actually.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to say in that, I'm not trying to say like to please everybody. I'm just trying to make a point that we can discuss anything and come up with the category and differences. We always have to also step back and understand, well, God works through everything. I mean, I could take you to my house and show you my bookshelf, and it could show you. You could probably say something of I can understand Michael's evolution as a person by seeing how these titles are. There are some books on that shelf that were what I needed at the time, but I would never recommend reading them to anybody. And that's why when you hear of other people, you have to be careful not to judge, because you don't know how God was working through that medium for them at that time. But we can generalize and say, in general, the way art is the most effective if it's not a self-expression, but it's an attempt to express higher truths. And there's actually a lot, like you mentioned Jonathan Peugeot. There's several people, many people in Orthodox thought leadership that are doing this type of work, that are reaching. I mean, I think he has a huge reach, if I'm not mistaken. So there, there's good stuff going on out there. But
I think the hardest part is to make someone else feel the way you feel about God loving you. And I'd love to read just a few sentences. from
yeah,
something.
please.
I was reading through this article. I don't know if any of you have heard of Anne Lamont. She's
Yeah,
an
yeah, I've
excellent
read her.
writer.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize she's a Christian. And they quote her here: "The mystery of God's love, as I understand it, is that God loves the man who was being mean to his dog just as much as he loves babies. God loves Susan Smith, who drowned her 2 sons, as much as he loves Desmond Tutu. So of course he loves old, ordinary me, even or especially at my most scared and petty and mean, obsessive. Loves me, chooses me."
Yeah, Annie Lamont's good. You ever read her? She said my 2 favorite prayers are "Help me, help me, help me," and "Thank you, thank you, thank you."
But I think that's that's our challenge, is to, because if you truly believe that God really does love you in all of your horrible faults, how can you convey that to another person? That's really the whole basis of the question.
I don't know the answer to that beyond. It's the only.
Live a good life.
Well,
You can't make a list and say, look, I do this and I do this. It's over once you count a list.
Right, but a lot of what comes out as a person from one person to another is if they're daring enough to enter into a relationship of some form or another. And I think it's challenging sometimes, because I think there's probably every one of us in this room has someone in their life right now that they're struggling with to love rightly, because there's a lot about that person that just.
And if you don't, you could just go to the local grocery store at an evening, and as you're putting your groceries away, there's a good chance somebody will come up to you and say, "Excuse me, I wonder if I could tell you something." Happens to me often. I can't be the only one. Needs.
I must be a very cold person.
Never comes up to me.
Yeah, I think it's I've noticed that they pick women.
Yeah.
Now, I get talked to a lot in grocery stores because I'm willing to talk to people. That's what it becomes, a willingness. If you're willing to talk to people, you get in fascinating. Yeah.
And there it goes.
You make.
Not that you were not an eye contact person.
But most of us are going through the grocery store. I got to get these darn groceries. I got to do this. I got to do that. Don't bother me. Yeah.
You need to start stepping into the grocery
Yeah. So Andy, your theological homework is to go to the great groceries, right? All right. Well, we've talked a lot about good things today. I assume, based on the tenor and nature of this conversation, we want to continue on this thread. Okay.
I think I'm late on it, but I think I'm hearing the question is, ask yourself why. But I think the answer is to the glory of God. So if you first put God first in whatever you do, your intention is to glorify Him,
Mhm.
then your purpose in life becomes more clear and more tolerable.
Yeah, it does. And then he wants. And then this is the thing that I think we have a hard time digesting. Yeah, he wants us to glorify him so that he can glorify us in the right way. I'll read your quote. Yeah. Go ahead.
Why would He glorify us? It's more that what we do shows who He is and brings glory to Him. That's our job, right?
That's our job. What I'm saying is it's the love of us. He wants to glorify us in terms of our growth and give us the good things. And that's what I mean. I don't mean glorify like reverse worship. I'll just read you.
Strengthen us.
Yeah, I'll read you one quote and we'll end here. In our tradition, when the human being stands in front of God, he invariably sees himself as dust and ashes. This death, then, is the existential realization of experience of the fact that he's a speck of dust. Indeed, he is a speck of dust with whom God has fallen in love with madly, to which he bows, which he becomes. Nevertheless, all human beings of all times, all who have ever lived and who will ever live, amount precisely to nothing. The incarnation occurs because God is in love with the dust and ashes he has created into humans, shaped in his likeness, and into whom he has breathed his spirit. God is the original iconographer, and each of us is an icon whom God has created. Each human comes into existence as an icon of God, which is another reason we're supposed to love one another and to love life itself. We may be made of dust in God's eyes, but it's gold dust. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Who's the author?
This is a combination. This is Father Silviu Bunta, a courtesy of Ted Bobush, Father Ted Bobush. It's a composite quote, but that articulates it much better than I attempted. So
That's nice.
yeah, that's what I was trying to say. That's what they said. So, all right, we'll end there. We have 2 more classes before the Thanksgiving break, and then we'll roll into December. There's nothing going on at church next week, right? That we know of.
We're good here next week. The week after is the basketball tournament.
Okay,
It'll be loud, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just allowed. I'm in a room full of Greeks. Probably get hate mail for that one, but I'm Greek, by the way. I'm not. So, all right. God bless everyone.